So in this video, I'm going to be talking about how I found myself in a $25 million negotiation. This was one of the biggest, not the biggest, but one of the biggest and most serious negotiations that I was involved in at the time. And this was a healthcare group based somewhere in UAE. I cannot tell you the exact specifics due to confidentiality agreements. But I was in Dubai and I was driving to another city in UAE, and I was supposed to have this negotiation with a business that's roughly valued around $25 million. And it had very good profit margins, around 30%, and it was a very healthy, cash flow producing deal. And it was my first exposure of seeing a business of that size doing extremely well. I had all the financial information that was sent to me in advance. We had discussions on the Zoom, just an introduction call. And now we were meeting for an in-person meeting. And even the intention of the meeting was to get introduced and understand who each of us are and how we can collaborate. So a little bit background, how I found this company. I had originally messaged and written emails to and called over a couple of hundred executives, because one of my mentors, one of the things that he said was that you got to kiss a lot of frogs. So instead of thinking and analyzing too much, I was just messaging a lot of people, calling a lot of people, and just by mere exposure, opportunities start to come your way. So I did that in my first year, and I was getting opportunities from that first year, even in my much later into my second year. So the calls and messages I did in my first year were providing me opportunities much later in my second year. And that's one of the reasons why you put in the work much early. And sometimes it takes time for you to see some results. And I was reached out by this executive who was the CEO of this company at the time. And he said that, I see from your profile that you're buying businesses. I said, yes, we are. And he says, I have an opportunity for you. Would you like to consider it? I said, sure. And then he sent me the financials. They were audited by top companies, and they were, the cash flows looked very healthy. They even owned the property and the land that this whole thing was built on, which is very rare. By the way, usually companies are renting wherever the facility is there. So over time, they had made so much money that the property was also under their ownership. I think it was mortgaged with a bank, and that bank loan was almost about to be paid off. So very healthy business, and it had 4 shareholders, all people from that region, locals, and extremely respectful, extremely professional, and they had impeccable reputation. And they invited me for a dinner. They said, we want to have dinner with you. We want to understand what you do, and we want to talk to you. And by this time, I had been on several negotiations. I had made so many calls, and I had dealt with high-profile executives, and I knew my way. Initially, when I entered these kind of meetings, I was extremely lost. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know how to start the conversation, start the negotiation. And you got to kind of navigate as you go along. And you have to expose yourself. Otherwise, you will never gain experience. So I exposed myself to a lot of transactions, and as a result, I had experience on how to deal with these types of meetings. So I enter the meeting, and the CEO, that CEO who reached out to me, by this time he was removed and he was replaced by another CEO. I came in and he started to have a casual chat with me to understand a little bit more about me. And the CEO, the partners were sitting there very respectful. They all greeted me. We sat down, and I entered, just before that, I entered into this nice 5-star hotel. They invited me there, and they had booked a whole conference room for me and for the company that I founded. And they had a nice board for outside this conference room of my company, and I entered in. The CEO greeted me. The 4 partners were sitting. There was a large conference table. We sat on the conference table. I introduced myself. I'm the founder of this group, and we are in the process of acquiring several healthcare groups. And we saw that your company is part of our investment criteria, and I wanted to, establish contact and see if you would like to exit your company, if you would like to sell your company. And they were like, yes, we would like to sell our company, but before that, we'd like to understand a bit more about you. What do you do? And then I did my presentation. I told them, what do I do? And I told them that, the names of the people on the board. I told them that we have a $3.5 billion CEO who is the chairman of the company. He's my business partner and a mentor. I consider him as a mentor. We have a lawyer who advised on a $13 billion transaction in our company. And we have, several high-profile executives, healthcare CEOs. And the partners were really baffled and moved by my story. And they asked me, how old are you? I told them 29. And I get this question a lot. They said, how did you put this team together? And how much money did you put in this company? And I said, I just borrowed some money from my family and I started this. I was very honest. I told them that, I started this company with little or nothing. And he says, how did you manage to get the CEO and did all of this? I said, I did it just like you built this company. I did it by taking risk. I did it by making the phone calls. I did it by putting myself on the line. He says, to have one director that you see on my company, I made 100 phone calls and messages and emails. And I took so many meetings. And I kissed a lot of frogs to find. And I saw the partners' eyes lit up, and there was this connection that happened because they are entrepreneurs, I'm an entrepreneur. They are in their 60s. Most of them were in their 60s. I was in my, late 20s. And there was this rapport that happens. Whenever there is a good deal that comes your way, and especially when you're treated like this, all of these things, why I'm sharing these details is this communicates seriousness. And there was a great rapport. We sat down later on. They treated me for dinner. Extremely respectful individuals. And if I compare it with small transactions, $1 million deal, $2 million deal, $5 million deal, most of these deals I was visiting them in their clinics. It wasn't the best environment. It was a little office where you are having these $1 million negotiations. It's very funny that you might think that $1 million negotiation would mean that you meet somewhere nice, like the place I was, but you're meeting in small offices, clinics or small places. It's not very impressive, in fact, but they are $1 million businesses. Don't forget that. But this company, $25 million deal, I started to see a whole different picture. Just a year before this amount of money or this size of company would be very big for me. But this was this company that I started to feel this is the right size, because it was much more stable. The partners were much more, I don't want to say nicer, but they were much more professional. They had a designated CEO in the meeting. They sent all the financials which were audited by the top accounting firm. The margins were healthy. I mean, the profit was so good. And there was such like characters. I mean, think about people who has built this kind of business. So one of the lessons that I learned from my mentor and also from this story, that when you find a good deal, right from the beginning of the meeting, you will know it. And it's a gut feeling. It's going to be reflected in the people they hire, in the kind of information they send you, the kind of, all the partners were present in the meeting, okay, except for one who was a 75-year-old man who was not in the city, happened to be not in the city. But he knew about the meeting and everything. It was done just perfectly. And it was by the book that my mentor trained me. And it was an experience that I would never forget, because just around that time, I was starting to have doubts. I'm making so much effort and putting in all of this energy. Is it all worth it? Is all the time that I spent away from my family worth it? But when I met them and when I spoke to them and when I got this kind of treatment and I felt connected to them, it became like we really were few visionaries sitting in a room having a conversation together about an opportunity. And it was really conversation about dreams. They wanted to exit their company. That was their dream. And I wanted to buy their company. That was my dream. And that's really the essence of business, is this collaboration of two human beings. And it was so much more. The numbers were obviously big, and it was a very interesting conversation. But every time I exposed myself to these kind of deals that may be uncomfortable, I learned so much. I gained so much. Even if the deal didn't go through, this deal is still on the hold right now. We will approach them again. But just that meeting did something to my mind, made me more comfortable in these conference rooms, made me understand these individuals. We analyzed that deal. We went and I proposed it with the board. And it's just truly been a great experience. And I just wanted to share that with you, just for me to be of this age and be exposed to these transactions, having little or no money, starting little or no money and being in this position has been truly incredible. If you are someone who wants to get in this position, I can help you. Reach out to me. I can tell you exactly how you can start from little or nothing and get to a position of meeting, of negotiating and doing these multi-million-dollar deals and meeting individuals who are truly extraordinary. They have built such amazing companies, such big companies, and you will have opportunities where you would have a chance to buy one of these companies and buy several of these companies. And you will be the major shareholder and you will be taking their legacy forward. And you'll be building these relationships that are going to empower you, nourish you, and obviously make you extremely rich. And that's the pathway that I'm privileged to walk on. And if you are someone who wants to walk on this pathway, reach out to me. Send me a message. We'll set up a call and we'll see where we go from there. I'll talk to you soon.